Hi, this is Anna Imagination. Welcome to the Ethical Asshole, and I am your host, the Salty Bitch. So I am working on a quiz. This is my first quiz. I'm very excited. This is called the Connection Ship Foundation Builder Quiz. The link, if you want to take this quiz, is below in the video description. So I started to pull apart this one particular section of the quiz where I was writing about empathy. And I wrote out compassionate foresight, true empathy. And then I started to analyze what is true empathy. And I'm sitting here reverse engineering this ethic. Now, this is actually one of the cardinal values. This is the third cardinal value. It is not like anything you have seen before. This is based off of the ancient Greek educational culture. This is different. So I'm looking at true empathy, and I wrote out practice and applying the care of others. And this is where the very first time I was thinking about empathy, it's supposed to be without any emotion. It is without emotion because you are in a logical state of mind thinking about, ooh, I don't want to hurt this person's emotions. How is the best way for me to navigate my behavior and composure to make sure I don't hurt this individual? It is without emotion. You are not being swept away on their problems or story. You are checking yourself to make sure you aren't the asshole here. This is true empathy. So I'm analyzing this. And you also have, of course, the empathizing, which is different, where you have somebody who's emoting all over the place and you are compassionate with them going, oh, yeah, they're now. And you are making sure that they are taken care of. But here's my question. When should you draw the line? Where is that line? And one of the things that was really interesting when I was putting this together was how much it was, and this is where it gets really, really sticky, because what I really started to notice was this felt more like accountability than it did empathy, and they are not the same thing. Accountability is what you learn in the fifth ethic. That's when you discovered that you have the power to throw stones. So you're picking up stones and you are throwing them all over the place. You are empowered at the fifth ethic. You found out that you can throw stones. So you throw them all over the place until you hit someone in the head and you start to feel bad for it. Now you're holding yourself accountable. So accountability has the pre-Epimetheus. And I don't know if you know this. So Epimetheus and Prometheus. Prometheus is the one, basically it's foresight and hindsight. That's really important. So accountability comes in with hindsight. Hindsight's 2020. That's accountability. It's when you realize, oh shit, I done fucked up. And now you have accountability because you lacked foresight. Now you have hindsight. Empathy is the reverse of this. It is the foresight of compassion. It is the opposite of accountability, or not the opposite. It is the opposite of accountability, where you are wanting to avoid. You've learned because you threw the rock, you hit someone in the face. Now you really want to make sure that doesn't happen again. So now you're holding the rock, and now you're thinking, okay, where am I going to throw this rock so that it doesn't harm other people? Now, prior to or right after accountability, in fact, when you go, oh no, my rock throwing hurt somebody, you enter something called equal footing. This is your sixth ethic. Now, in the sixth ethic, this is where we're overwhelmed with remorse for our actions. And people who are mentally unstable, who don't have self-regulation, will go the extreme black and white of, oh my God, I've thrown my rock. I will never again do rock skipping in a lake. So they go the extreme opposite where they will never again pick up a rock. Extreme black and white thinking, and then they'll live here. And what ends up happening in the case of accountability between the fifth and the sixth ethic is the fifth ethic, you have accountability. You're going, oh no, what have I done? And you end up devaluing yourself. You put yourself down. So one of the challenges, the trial of the sixth ethic, is learning self-value. Now, if you have self-regulation, the third ethic, you're fine. You're going to learn it pretty quickly. You're going to self-regulate and you're going to bounce right back and you're going to swing on that pendulum and you're going to find integrated, happy middle ground. But if you don't have the self-regulation, you're going to go extreme black and white. Self-regulation is what prevents black and white thinking. So if you don't know how to self-regulate, you probably have black and white thinking. So now after you've thrown the rock, you've hit someone in the face, you feel bad. So now your badness or your remorseness puts you down all the way at the bottom and you put them on a pedestal. I'm going to overcompensate, overnourish people because I'm afraid that if I pick up a rock, it'll hit them in the face. And that's not at all how it works. At the sixth ethic, when you've learned the trial, what you learn is how to not be a doormat and assert yourself. So self-assertion could be another way of saying what you're learning in the sixth trial is self-assertion. It's learning that you can speak up and not harm people, or that literally asserting yourself doesn't cause anyone harm. So you need to go into this entire video with the understanding of accountability, self-regulation, and also self-assertion. Now, let's look at the seventh ethic. This is where we get into humble submission to receive. We want to be humble enough to be open to receive. If you do not have humble submission, you will never learn. In addition to that, you want to stand up for yourself. You want to tell everyone to shut up very kindly, but at the same time, you want to carve your space out a place for your own to learn. And then you want to observe and silently listen. Now, once you're done silently listening and observing, which is stage one of learning, stage two of learning is doing it yourself. Now, you're going to need courage and you're going to need to step into vulnerability for this, but now you're going to need to combine that with self-assertion, which is what you learned at the sixth ethic. So now you're taking the fifth ethic, you're just taking the sixth ethic and you are combining it with the second and the third ethic. That's really what you are doing at the sixth, not the third ethic yet. You are taking the self-authority and you are combining it with self-accountability. I'm going to get this, guys. Give me a minute. 6 and 2. It's 2 and 6. That is what you are doing at the eighth ethic. Isn't that interesting? It's mathematically correct. 6 and 2 equals 8. Oh, that's fascinating. Oh, that opens up a whole nother level of mathematics for me to study here. I just got to say. Okay, so I'm going to focus now. So the second ethic is self-authority. That is where you learn that you can open up and be vulnerable so you can also receive data. That's when you are vulnerable. Now you combine that with a sixth ethic, and that is your self-value, and that gives you, when you combine those things, when you combine those two things, now you are at the eighth ethic where you are learning transmission. When you are learning transmission, you are open to receive, you are asserting yourself, you are putting that forward, but you're also learning how to do it without harming other people. So now you've got this self-regulation act going, and when you move into the ninth ethic, this is what you're now learning, is how to balance it. So what happens in the eighth ethic is you're back to that stone throwing, only it's your words now. Before it was your actions, now it's your words. So at the eighth ethic, you're learning, how do I say this? How do I assert this without harming other people? I'm going to tell you right now, this is a really hard skill to learn, that your words have the effect on other people. But where do you draw the line? Because if you are not self-regulating, you're going to be back and forth to, I'm a complete asshole, which is probably what most people are exposed to. And then it switches over to, I'm going to go the extreme and tiptoe and eggshell walk around everybody else. So now you've got two extremes and boom, welcome to woke culture. So now what you're looking at is you got the assholes who are screaming and refusing to cater to anybody. They're vile and they're swearing, and I'm describing myself right now. And then over here, you've got people who are eggshell walking and they're tiptoeing and they absolutely do not want to harm anybody. But it's so extreme, because just like these guys are extreme, that they don't want to hurt anyone and they are unable to even communicate. And this is what I learned a lot when I was in this group, is you couldn't breathe around these people without them going, oh my God, you hurt my feelings. It was so extreme. And then they made everybody conform around them. They made everybody eggshell walk around them. And that is actually narcissism. That is the seed of narcissism, where you start to make everyone start to pay attention. There are 8 billion of us people here. We cannot pay attention to the needs of 8 billion people, which is why I'm sitting down asking the question, where is this line drawn? And it never occurred to me. I'm like, there's that third ethic coming back going, self-regulation, Anna, of course, self-regulation. Thank you, me. So self-regulation is when you take I'm going to assert myself verbally, and also I'm going to take that accountability with my words, and I'm going to combine them together into this gorgeous cocktail of, I'm going to assert my position, and I'm also going to be mindful of where people stand. But again, where do you draw the line? And this is where I was really looking into this, because if you walk the line too delicately, what ends up happening is you end up enabling people. You end up encouraging their inability to even measure that they've got a problem. So this is the situation it creates. Let's say we've got two people, Bob and Sally. So let's say Bob is a real asshole and Bob doesn't know it. Let's say that Bob is a great guy, but he is an asshole and he just doesn't know it. So let's call Bob ignorant. Now you've got Sally, and Sally has absolutely no skills to manage her own emotions. She's really neglectful on the third ethic. So this is what you're going to end up with. Are we all paying attention? Because this is really the problem. You've got ignorant Bob, who just doesn't know how to do any filter control because he hasn't learned the fifth ethic. And then you've got Sally, who doesn't learn the third ethic, so she doesn't know how to self-regulate. So she's open to receive. And she also doesn't have the fourth ethic, which is boundary setting. So now you've got someone without boundaries and without regulation walking around in a place where she should not be at. She should be at home learning how to self-regulate. But then Bob says something really, really hurtful. Now, this is where Sally needs to use a boundary and say, that hurt me. But this is where it gets to be a problem. Because she's using the boundary to communicate to him, look, you've hurt my feelings. Instead of removing herself from the situation, she's not taking care of her self-regulated needs. So now the question comes down to this. Was Bob really an asshole? Or was Sally needing to do work? And this is the problem. This is our societal problem. Are you really being an asshole, or is Sally self-neglecting? And this is the argument that we're all not having, that we're actually all having. This is the argument that is occurring on every forum right now across the entire globe. This is what's going on. Is Bob really an asshole, or is Sally neglecting her self-care? Now, Sally will insist that she's fine. So she's going to police and enforce Bob's behavior. But was Bob really the asshole? And this is the question that it comes down to. Was Bob really the asshole? Was Bob asserting himself? Was he speaking his truth? Was he saying what he believed was accurate? And was it Sally who's too sensitive? So now this is really the question is, are they really an asshole, or are you not doing the mental work that you should be doing? And instead of assessing the question, oh, I really need to be doing that work, instead, they're policing it. Now, here's the problem with this. If you don't police, then Bob will never know that he was an asshole. And there's the catch-22. This is the problem with our society. This is our current societal catch-22. We really need to name this catch-22. Societal catch-22 number 83. Because what's going on is it is the asshole, or is it the ignorant asshole? And this is it right here, because boundaries educate people on when they're being an asshole, if they're being an asshole. But again, are they being an asshole, or is Sally neglectful and not being responsible of her own emotions? Is she neglecting her fourth ethic, and or is she being responsible, which is what the fourth ethic is? It's literally responsibility. Is she self-regulating? Now, if she is self-regulating, then, so here's the question. If she is self-regulating and if Bob is being an asshole, then Sally should say something. But if Sally is not being if she is not self-regulating, then she has no metric to determine if Bob is actually being an asshole. So the question comes down to, are you self-regulating? This is the ignorant asshole self-regulation catch-22 of our society right now. This is it right here. Are you self-regulating? Because if you are not self-regulating, you cannot police other people. So now let's look over at the ignorant asshole. Is the asshole really being an asshole, or is he just being assertive? Now, if he was just being assertive, then he did nothing wrong. Now, you take someone like Bob, who is ignorant. He's really a nice guy, but he may be an asshole. Let's assume for a moment that he was just being assertive. But because Sally was not self-regulating, she took assertiveness as an attack, which is exactly what happens when you don't self-regulate. So now she's angry with Bob. She argues with Bob. You shouldn't do that. And Bob, who's really a nice guy, is now going, oh no, I've hurt somebody. And now he turns down his assertive level to passive. And now he's a doormat like Sally. And that is what happens when people who don't self-regulate, or regulate other people. People who self-regulate cannot regulate other people because their metric is broken. So now they don't know if this person is being assertive or an asshole. Well, they're not being passive like me. Well, you are not the metric. You are not the defined standard metric because now you aren't self-regulating, and now we have a problem. If you're self-regulating, then you have the ability to go, oh, he was just being an asshole, or he was being assertive, and you need to go home and do some mental work. And there you have it. Now, the assholes do need to have somebody go, hey, asshole, you know you're being a dick right now, right? You want to say that to the assholes because you're going to get two responses. You're going to get four responses, but let's just break this down to two responses. You're going to get the, oh no, I am so sorry. I will change my ways. I did not know. Or you're going to get the, fuck you, it's not my problem, it's your problem, and you don't want to deal with those people. But if the assholes who legitimately are kind people don't get that information, don't see boundaries, they're never going to know to adjust their behavior. Now, also, you do want to step up to the assholes to say, hey, asshole, you're being an asshole. And when it happens enough, the assholes will go, oh, maybe I should change my behavior because maybe I'm so much of an asshole, I'm just pissing everybody off. Now, in the meantime, you've got the extreme Sally who's not even self-regulating. So she's now policing everybody to regulate because she's decided it's easier to regulate 8 billion people instead of one. So now you've got two people where you've got the asshole, ignorant and knowledgeable, but you've also got the lack of self, the non-regulator. So you don't want your non-regulator people to regulate the rest of the culture. And that's what's happening. Is you've got a lot of non-regulators doing regulations while you've got a lot of assholes who aren't really assholes. Some of them are assholes. Some of them are assertive. Some of them are now fighting for their right to just assert themselves. And now they're fighting back. And so you've got these three categories of, oh, I'm just a dick and I'm going to be a dick to everybody. These are the ones who need the boundaries. And then you've got this other group of, I don't want to be a dick, but I don't know I'm being a dick. And you really, these guys need to be told. But then you've got the people who are like, look, I'm just talking. I'm just asserting myself. I am not at all tiptoeing around anyone else because I refuse to listen to the non-regulators. And in the meantime, I'm just living my life and being assertive. So what do? You know, I don't know. This is one societal problem I'm trying to figure out, and I just haven't been able to figure it out yet. I mean, really, it comes down to you need to really sit back and figure out if you are regulating. Now, here's the other side. Let's look at this from the asshole point of view. See, I gotta think about this. I have never been an on-purpose asshole. I was for 1 week, 5 days on YouTube, and I made that very clear. Like I had 5 days of on purpose being an asshole. Aside from that, I was very much an assertive or I was an ignorant asshole. And that's where I've been. And this is actually one of the biggest conundrums I've had my whole life is where do you draw the line? I'm going to speak the truth. I'm going to speak the truth. I am controversial. And that's okay. I am controversial. I do not avoid sensitive topics because non-regulators don't know how to regulate or won't regulate. I will not do that shit. I do not eggshell walk because eggshell walking causes borderline personality disorder. And I busted my fucking ass to get that shit out of my head. So no, thank you. I don't eggshell walk because I know that's what causes borderline personality disorder. Thank you very much. I got rid of that fucking shit. That's not in my head anymore. So that being said, I am in this gorgeous, comfortable, assertive space where I'm going to say, I stand for truth and I stand for logic. And if you don't want to hear what I have to say, you really should not be around me. If you are a non-regulator, you really should not be around me. But non-regulators really shouldn't be around anyone. They really need to be home working on their 12 ethics. Non-regulators should not be socializing. So now you've got a lot of non-regulators pre-socializing, policing all of these people. And the problem is you've got three categories of people. Two of these people are needing correction, needing those boundaries. But the other people, the assertive ones, are actually the ones that are regulated doing it properly. They need to be speaking about these things. They need to be saying what they need to say. They need to be giving voice to these topics. And non-regulators need to know that they are a non-regulator. And that's really what this comes down to, is non-regulators need to not be socializing. And if they are pre-socializing, while they are non-regulating, they've got some serious problems. So this is really the catalyst where all of this starts, is the non-regulators need to be honest about whether or not they are regulating. And if you are not regulated, you should not be socializing. You need to get your ass to a comfort zone, and you need to nourish yourself into stability before you decide to insert yourself into culture. And when you do start to dip your toes back into socializing, you need to use boundaries, you need to use filters, you need to exposure therapy yourself. And this is what they're not doing. Non-regulators do not use exposure therapy. They jump into the deep end of the pool and then scream at everyone for getting themselves wet. Yeah, it's a good summarization of what our culture is doing right now. A whole lot of non-regulators jumping into the deep end of the pool and then screaming at everyone else that they are wet. In the meantime, the assertive ones are fantastic metrics for us going, wow, we need the assertive ones so we can measure, wow, am I needing to regulate? Because this guy was just asserting himself, and here I am bitching about getting wet because I jumped into the deep end of the pool. Thank you, assertive ones. And then over here, you've got the assholes who really need to be told, dudes, you're an asshole. You really need to turn that down. But if you are not a regulator, you really are in no position to moderate. And that's it. You've got a bunch of non-regulators trying to play moderator. Non-regulators have no business being moderators. And that's the problem. The assertive, or the assholes, the ignorant asshole and the deliberate asshole, they need moderators. Absolutely. I think I'm finally getting this all broken down. So the moderators must be regulated, and they also need to step up and say, hey, you're an asshole. You really need to chill that out. I am self-regulated. I can tell you when you're being an asshole. Now, in the meantime, I'm over here doing my assertive shit. And here's the thing. You are not regulated if you are not assertive. You cannot assert yourself if you are not regulated. So it's very simple. If you can assert yourself without hostility, you're good. Then you are doing a really good job regulating yourself. If you do not have a stable handle on that, if you are getting emotional when you assert yourself, you need to get your ass back. And that's really what it comes down to. Are you emotional? Because if you're emotional, you're not regulating. You are not regulating at all. You are not regulating, because when you regulate, you are not emotional. Which means if you are emotional, so the assertive ones, and there it is right there, the assertive ones are the ones who are regulated, and thus they are not emotional. What they are is logical. Assertive is regulated, not emotional, and logical. They are the ones who need to be standing up there saying, you need to calm the fuck down. You need to get your ass home, and you need to not be such an asshole, dude. There is your metric of our 4 social personalities right now. The asshole, the ignorant asshole, the assertive, regulated, logical, sound mind, and the non-regulated, pre-socializing moderator. Well, we're a mess, aren't we? Well, thank you so much. And may the kindest of words always find you.